Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the L1 show with all three of us. Wendell is back from Taiwan.
I'm back.
They didn't invade while you were gone.
Oh.
Thankfully.
Woo. Fun times. I got to see Steve and everybody and Paul and Kyle and Eber and just everybody.
There's been a lot of vlogs on the channel. If you've missed it, go check them out.
And did you get facially recognized during your flights?
Oh, yeah. Repeatedly.
Big time.
Yeah, because that is the thing. I remember when this first, because I think we were doing this when this first started to get floated around, and everybody was like, listen, this is never going to be mandatory. This is just a special thing to get you through faster. People love this. Don't complain about it. What are you talking about? Slippery slope.
There were so confidently incorrect comments on so many of our videos.
Yeah, well, I think those might have been maliciously incorrect. But here we are.
TSA expands controversial facial recognition program. Look at that. It's for everybody.
I mean, we've been confidently incorrect about things in the past, but in terms of this kind of thing, I feel like we're usually spot on. The worst thing is usually what's going to happen with this
It's
sort of
pretty
stuff.
obvious. Now, we talked about this a week or two ago. It's where you put your license in there and you don't have to interact with a human being. And they're like, oh, it's safer. But then, of course, they're going to delete these, right?
Oh.
They're definitely not going to use them to train AI, or they're not going to send them to NSA, or we've never heard about that being abused.
They're definitely not going to lose all your data.
You have our state to thank for the Real ID program being delayed a couple of years because our lawmakers are fighting it vehemently because, it's like, it seems like this will be abused. And also we don't like change. And it's like, well, at least you get that benefit.
Except didn't really do much, did it?
It did delay it.
And we also know that a new kind of thing that is going to be creeping up is that the federal government is going to take more of a hand in businesses under the guise of cybersecurity. Now, in fairness, the businesses are doing a really piss poor job with cybersecurity. It's astonishing how bad they are. So we established this new piece of government, and we had a cyber director, but they're missing.
White House quiet on national cyber director choice, senator says. So this article seems like it was paid for by said senator in order to try to push the agenda forward on their candidate. And I'd never heard of their candidate. I would like to nominate Mudge. Mudge would be an excellent cybersecurity director.
Their candidate is just the guy that's currently doing the job because he was the next in line.
Yeah.
So they're like, why don't we just give this guy the job?
This guy looks like a KFC man.
I know that Mudge would do a better job if we turned him loose. That's all I know.
There's no chance that you know that.
He did a better job with Twitter.
And Louisiana is one of the many states who is deciding to come up with laws that cannot be enforced to turn us all into criminals. What a great strategy.
Louisiana passes a bill banning kids from the internet without parental consent.
There's no way to enforce that.
I support it in theory. I think the internet would be so much better without kids. But yeah, like you say,
There's no way to enforce that.
It's ridiculous. What are you going to do? Is there any world where victimizing these parents, fining them, or God forbid, arresting them and jailing them improves the child's life? It's like, oh, you could see bad things on Facebook, or we could put you in a foster home.
My interpretation of this law was it's a get out of jail free card for companies, because then they can just say, hey, kids aren't allowed on the internet. All of a sudden we don't have to deal with all that.
Parents do need to do a lot more. But once they get to school, other kids are going to have phones.
Yeah.
It seems like you could do like maybe a public health initiative about, healthy screen time or something, and then try to push that through the schools. But I don't know.
Because we have problems with hepatitis C because people won't wash their hands. You really think that that's going to penetrate?
Don't they do like mental health awareness stuff in schools too? They could do that for social media. I don't know.
Yeah, but once a school tells me, they've lied to me so much already. It's like we're talking about the DARE program. It's like, I don't trust you people, and I know what you're up to.
Social media is cool because DARE also told me.
We need to get somebody, you know what? We need to get the TikTokers to talk about this. To take a little government money and get the TikTok girls to talk about
washing their hands.
Although then that's
also
cheating, isn't it?
I mean, it probably would work for washing your hands.
When our children are being influenced by a thing and we need to teach them not to use that thing. It's a bit of a circular argument, I guess. And the SEC, they continue to really, really flex their muscles and go after, it was Coinbase for a while. Now they've got a new target.
SEC asks for emergency order to freeze Binance US assets anywhere in the world. The SEC has got all of their pieces in place, and they're moving a lot of things simultaneously. This is one of them. They think that Binance, which is not a U.S. company but has U.S. subsidiaries, is going to try to cycle in all of the assets that U.S. citizens and companies have put in Binance through their international companies. So this is saying, hey, let's use the U.S. company to seize everything everywhere. Seems a little extrajudicial.
It's only for the U.S. company, but the U.S. company might be moving funds in and out. They're accusing them of doing the same thing that FTX was doing, commingling the funds. The funds must be segregated.
That's weird, though, because didn't the subprime mortgage crisis come from bundling things together that were toxic assets with good assets?
Yeah, but that's totally different.
Is
because
it?
they're
This
in
time
control
it'll be
of that.
better.
That's weird. It's weird how that works.
And Binance is not taking this lying down. This is always a very scary time, though. When the crypto exchange announces this, it's time to worry.
Breaking, Binance US suspends USD deposits and warns of fiat withdrawal pause. So that means you can't get your money out. Although you can get your money out at the time of this article, they just said we're going to have to pause it.
And you could probably get your crypto out if you went to a private wallet. So they're just saying it's fiat that they're blocking. But if I were on Binance, I think right now I would take the chance and go ahead and transfer this to my private wallet. I guess that's annoying if you have 500 different kinds of cryptos. Well, you know what's as annoying? Losing them. And Coinbase, again, they were the old enemy, but they're still an enemy. And the SEC, I guess they felt like this was the time. You know, it's summer. It's time to get ready and start suing.
SEC sues Coinbase over exchange and staking programs, and the stock drops 12%. It's the same allegations, like you're bundling things together, you have securities, so on and so forth. I think the SEC realized what Coinbase was doing, Coinbase's lawyers, because a lot of the complaints that Gensler has, Coinbase appears to have anticipated, and there are public requests going back weeks and months in some cases saying, all right, show us how we are supposed to bundle this. It's like, this is kind of a new asset. It seems like might be a security. Give us some rules to do this. And the SEC did not respond.
Also, I forgot to add this in, but I'll say that the sideline here. Binance now claims that they have records that Gensler tried to get a job with them in 2019 and they didn't hire him.
Interesting.
So they point out some specifics here for the first time ever. Solana, Cardano, and Protocol Labs Filecoin, they claim are securities because of the way that they function.
Yeah.
They're not just cryptos. So look for those to be dropped.
It is funny, though, that a lot of Coinbase's argument is, hey, this is a new technology. What are we supposed to do? And there really isn't a lot actionable that they've been given as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and when they publicly went after him about that, I think it was one of the weeks you were gone, his response was just like, you don't tell me what to do. I am the law.
Yeah, that's
I
probably,
am the Senate.
that's probably going to backfire for them at some point.
And the right to repair laws are popping up. It's just like little popcorn kernels. It's getting hot. We're getting more and more of them. Now, Massachusetts was one of the early adopters, but as usual in this kind of thing, it got tied up in appeals and lawsuits and so forth, and it took a really long time. But now they're finally putting their foot down.
June 1, Massachusetts right to repair law is now being enforced, effective June 1. The judge said, nope, you've had long enough, car makers. Your mechanics and everybody else, they need access to documentation, the CAN bus. This is great.
This is about the telematics. And what was the last state to do it? It wasn't New York, or was it New York?
Colorado.
Colorado's got one that's not, it's toothless.
Yeah.
I think it was another state. I can't remember. I'm sorry.
New York's was
We've had
decent.
like 3 or 4 in the last 2 weeks.
But I think New York's carved out the telematics.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one after that kept it. And everybody was like, oh, yes, this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
So it turns out Massachusetts had it too, but because of all the fighting, it took so long. But now it's already happened. You can get your car's telematics. Some of the car manufacturers had quotes in here and they're like, this is impossible to give them what they want. How? Why? I mean,
It just is. We need to make more money.
you've got the equipment. in your place.
These records are only allowed to be inserted into our database. We can't give them to you. That's crazy. Select statements? Who's ever heard of that?
Also, you know, what's interesting is, you know, they talk a lot about select. No, the user must be able to query this and see these things and get that, but nobody's talking about turning it off.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about giving the consumer the ability to shut that garbage down.
It's funny that you say that, because in the states where they actually shut down like the concierge type services that were available in the cars to consumers, they also didn't stop collecting the data. They just stopped selling you services based on the data, like pickup for oil change.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And Microsoft, of course, is a service that you would expect mostly kids to be on. I don't know if the demographics play that out these days, but you would expect if you're building that platform that there's going to be a lot of kids, and maybe you should take some steps to deal with the rules and regulations of that.
Microsoft paid $20 million settlement for illegally collecting children's personal data. I love this case because it had a Perry Mason moment. You know, there was all this fighting back and forth between the FTC and Microsoft, and the Perry Mason moment was, okay, suppose that you find that you have accidentally collected the data of children. How do you delete that? And there was no answer.
He's talking about deleting data? What is that?
Yeah.
But those are customers.
Yeah, Microsoft's response seemed to literally be, we just hold on to it until they're older than 13. And it's like, that's not how that's
You're
supposed
kind of
to
just
work.
funneling them into being your customer, though.
In their mind, like when they hear that, it sounds like, what are you doing about burning that money?
Yeah.
Because that's what it is to them. Why would we do that? And the Apple Epic showdown continues to rage on. They rarely agree on anything, but strangely enough, they agree on this.
Apple and Epic asked the U.S. Appeals Court to reconsider its antitrust ruling. Apple mostly won, which I can't believe. It's shocking. And Apple doesn't believe that they won enough. And they won like 90% of the case. And then, of course, Epic has been egregiously wronged here, in my opinion. And they're also asking for an appeal.
Now they
Bless the
can,
judge who has to deal with that, because I'm sure that's insufferable.
they're allowed to put the link to the third-party payments, but it's still not I mean, who's going to do that?
Yeah.
Mobile users all about convenience. So Epic thinks that it's not good enough. Apple thinks it goes too far. And they're both just taking a crap on this judge.
Meanwhile, by the time this actually comes up in court again, the EU will probably have its plan in place for Apple, which requires that Apple allow side loading of applications. So Epic should have a whole new fresh set of arguments to say, look, see, the European Union is allowing you to side load applications. Why? How can Apple own their phone after they sell it to you?
And, you know, we're rushing headlong into the future. Artificial intelligence taking over the world, and everything is great except that one promise we were given: flying cars. Where are they? Well, it turns out they're here.
U.S. proposes training and pilot certification rules for air taxis, which are getting increasingly popular, supposedly, in metropolitan areas.
It's a little bit worrying that the first generation of trainers are going to come directly from the industry because they're the only ones who know how it works. So that could be a little bit of a conflict. But I mean, we do need to train people.
Well, it may ultimately not matter if it's fully automated.
I don't think these are
They're not.
self-driving. The big challenge here is like you've got helicopter training and you've got airplane training, but this VTOL hybrid thing, not a lot of people understand what to do with that. So,
It takes off like a helicopter and then glides like a prop plane.
I wonder who edited this story. Who has a
Oh, it was me.
who has a
I
certain
wrote it.
interest in composting?
New York City residents will soon have to compost their food scraps. There is a law going into effect soon.
A law that everybody will ignore.
When I visited Canada, I was impressed about how studious people were about doing this. Because like I had a pizza box and there was like little bits of pizza on it. I was like, this just goes in the trash side, right? And they're like, oh no, we can put it in the recycling side. And then they proceeded to diligently
Scrape
all
all
the
of
little...
the cheese and the grease and stuff off.
And I was like, okay.
My
neat.
compost, my pizza boxes go out in the garden.
What a defeated people they are.
Their milk comes in bags.
And the hot story this week for the conspiracy theorists
This story also appears in another place in the news.
was the UFOs. Well, the other thing is, like that was kind of a nonsense section, but it's like, well, I guess it goes in government too, because the government has officially stepped in.
The House of Representatives is going to hold a hearing on the whistleblower's UFO claims. If you're just now hearing about some sort of crazy UFO story, this is not the nonsense section. This is actually the government section, but it was a weird story because it wasn't immediately shot down. NASA kind of stepped in and said, but apparently craft of non-human origin have been recovered.
And like maybe some corpses too. The thing about, well, we'll talk about that story more, but the crazy thing about that story is not that no one's shutting it down, but they had several people who like sounded like high-ranking people who were like, yes, this man has impeccable credentials. I trust whatever he says. And they're like, what are we supposed to think about this? So I guess the House of Representatives is compelled by that, and they want answers. So there's going to be a hearing. Unfortunately, we often have congressional hearings that result in pretty much nothing.
Yeah.
If that's true, my first question would be, what did your planet do when social media was invented? How did you deal with it?
The biggest question, well, you know what? Let's talk about it when we get to the story. And moving over to the EU, once again, everybody is trying to get their own chips. And now that AI is raging on, they're like, oh, God, we got to be good at that too. Everybody's just kind of looking at their own inventory and saying, we suck at technology, and that's bad going forward.
The EU has approved $8.7 billion of state aid for tech innovation projects. And I was momentarily very excited for this, and I read it, and it talks about innovation around AI and just all this bleeding edge stuff. Yeah. Really, what we need is your local hardware store to look like a Radio Shack on steroids from the 1970s. That will power a whole new wave of entrepreneurs and individualism and invention and economic growth.
What if we just gave all that money to giant companies instead, though?
Also, nobody's going to those hardware stores. They're shopping online. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that local, but it needs to be more accessible than China.
Wendell makes the commute to Micro Center all the time.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's like Mecca.
It's not well, when you say hardware store, I thought you meant like a hardware store. Well, that's not what they're going to do with that money. Instead, they're going to probably, like Krista says, give it to big companies and tell them that they want these things and they want control of them. They want backdoors. But another thing they're going to do with that money.
Universal basic income of nearly $2,000 a month to be trialed in England for the first time. I find this article slightly alarmist because at the end of the day, they're only spending £1 million and it's like 30 people.
Yeah, it's supposed to prove that it will work. But the problem with universal basic income isn't that it might improve people's lives. It's that we don't have the money. Do you realize that all of these nations are in incredible debt?
30 people also is probably not enough of a sample size to tell you anything remotely meaningful.
Yeah, well, let me sum it up for you. I could save them whatever they're paying for this study. People like it. People like free money.
At some point, there's a tipping point of, free money and blah, blah, blah. I heard a statistic. I don't know if it's true, but our social programs that give money out spend half of the money that they have on managing how they give the money out, which seems like an absurdly high percentage.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And they have to do that because people will always cheat. It's just how we're built.
Yeah.
They'll take every opportunity they have.
It seems like now that we've got the Apple level surveillance of people down to the most minuscule eye movements that we could do that a little cheaper, but maybe not.
So you're advocating for that?
It's already there.
Well,
we might as well use it.
Isn't that the argument for universal basic income is that if everybody gets it, then you don't have to spend all the money on the overhead?
Yeah. I mean, that is the one good thing about it, right? Is
Yeah.
that it's supposed to be universal, but this clearly isn't. They're cherry picking who gets it.
I would be interested, like, if they do give that money to low income people, like, how long is the thing of the study, like the period, did they say?
2 years.
It'd be interesting to see, like, if you're a low income person who's had to like really scramble for everything that you've ever earned and like you're always behind on stuff, like once you start having that kind of like stability, what will they do with it?
Yeah, 2 years. How about this argument? How about if you want the universal basic income, you can opt in to the spying and the surveillance and the control, and I can opt out and not take it.
That wouldn't be terrible.
And voting rights.
Oh.
So the AI content is taking over the world. I've seen a lot. Every time I see a little grammatical error or spelling mistake, I'm like, is this AI? I get suspicious of it. But
Or maybe that person's just dumb, you know? Or I say as someone who often makes spelling mistakes.
And how do we identify it? What do we do about it? Well, the leaders have solutions.
AI generated content should be labeled, EU Commissioner Jourova says. Okay.
Yes, because everyone who makes a meme is going to label it.
Also, we have to create a unit that detects and enforces that.
I would like the first, like, some really ancient documents to be retroactively labeled as created by AI when in fact it was just Clippy. It's like, does Clippy meet the minimum threshold for AI?
Do you need help writing that?
Yeah, it's like, dear so-and-so, it looks like you're writing a letter. Let me help you. And it's just like, ugh.
And Microsoft Teams is one of those applications that comes with Windows and stays with Windows. In fact, you would have to go to great lengths in order to separate the two, unless you are the EU leadership.
Microsoft might just let you remove chat from Teams just so it can avoid legal trouble. This is Internet Explorer browser bundling 2.0.
They say it's monopolistic. It is. So they're finally willing to let you get rid of it. Can we make that same argument for the telemetry?
Yeah, I don't understand how the EU can look at that and not, like, when they click the start menu and it's filled with garbage. And it's like, all right, that's cool. How do I turn this garbage off? And they're like, oh, no, there's no. It's like, I would like to, in the preferences where it's like, how much internet searching would you like to do? A lot or a little? And there's no off option there. Why is there no off option there?
You know why.
Yeah, I know why, but the EU regulators apparently don't.
And the inevitable road to central bank digital currencies is going to leave some corpses by the side, like roadkill. And in Australia, or no, wait, is this Austria?
Australia. I read it as Australia.
Australia. Yes, Australia. One of those corpses is going to be your checkbook.
Checks will be phased out by 2030 as mobile wallet use skyrockets.
When was the last time you guys wrote a check?
I want to pay my taxes.
Yeah.
I wrote one this week because I had a guy come out to do invasive removal for us.
Yeah, I've definitely used checks a few times to pay contractors that were a little sus.
Yeah, I mean, they argue that it's too much overhead and it's costing the banks too much. Really, I think they're doing okay.
I got the reason we used the check for the guy who came out to do ours is because there was a fee on if we had used a card.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I'll just pay by check.
Checks and e-checks are insanely way cheaper. I'm surprised they haven't caught on.
There's also some people were just like, hey, pay me cash and we'll ignore this whole 6% services thing, which I'm okay with. Moving on to a little bit of social media. Canada, as we have learned, has said that the big tech companies should be paying the news companies. Now, we already saw this play out. I think that was also in Australia, wasn't it? So once again, this will play out in another country.
Meta will test blocking news on Instagram, Facebook, and some other places for Canadians. It's
random. It'll be a small, like 1% of the user base, I think. So if you're one of the lucky few, you don't get to look at news. But this is, of course, a threat saying that, hey, if you actually enforce these laws, we simply will remove the service in your country.
It's weird that they're not just going to use AI to regenerate the content of the news. I guess that would be even more cause for politicians screeching.
That would be a headline if they would not enjoy. And Meta, as we've learned with the launch of their new AR headset, they are not giving up on the metaverse. They're in some ways doubling down, but you can't ignore the rise of AI. So they're going to do that too.
Meta plans to put AI everywhere on its platforms.
How about allowing me to sort by new on Marketplace? That's all I'm asking for.
You could ask the AI to show you a marketplace that's sorted by new.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point. If people actually earnestly wanted to design something useful, Krista could go to the Facebook bot and say, hey, based on the stuff that I've looked at on Marketplace for the last 6 months, can you create an alert that only bothers me one time a week with new posts to Marketplace for these kinds of products? And the AI should be able to do that. And that would be genuinely useful. Revolutionary even. But they're too close-minded to come up with something like that.
They do have sometimes, and I don't know what triggers it, but sometimes you'll go to the Marketplace page and it'll be like, look for other things related to your search for X. But like you can't set that notification. It just randomly comes up.
Because that's engagement.
I guess, yeah.
It's going to be a tough headline. This was
Oh,
kind of covered lightly, although The Verge, they did finally jump on it. But there was a little bit of a bombshell that was talking about the algorithm. And the algorithm does seek to serve whatever your interests are, but should it?
Instagram's recommendation algorithms are promoting the worst kind of material that you can imagine. And the investigation here actually investigated not just Instagram, but Twitter and a whole bunch of other things. And for some reason, Instagram's ratio was insanely way different than everybody else, at least according to the article authors here.
So a lot of people are reporting this kind of stuff when they see it. And those reportings often will go for months without anything being done. And there's just a little thing that says, we apologize, this has been flagged, but our community teams haven't gotten to it yet or whatever. But more damning, when they did the investigation, they just created a brand new account, went to one of these things, and I guess they liked some stuff or whatever. And immediately Instagram was like, I have so much of this for you.
ooh.
And then those people are selling stuff as well.
Yeah, this seemed to be just the gateway to, hey, send me some cryptocurrency and then I'll send you all this extremely illegal material. It's like, oh, interesting.
They also have the hashtag problem, and you would think it would be so easy once one person, I mean, we can't say these, but once a single human being reports this,
Yeah.
just shut down the hashtag. But no, these are apparently going strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would that ever be useful for on a social media network other than this?
I noticed also this week that Twitter goes so hard in the other direction that people have been complaining, for like the whole pride thing. They've been posting pictures of pride parades, but then people are flagging that as, bad content. And enough people do that the Twitter algorithm doesn't know how to deal with that. It's sort of flagged maliciously, in my opinion.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the culture war, the brigading is a big tactic, and both sides do it, which just weakens our systems and makes everything worse.
Yeah. Instagram's approach for that is basically just ignore everything, apparently. Bold.
It is a dark dystopian future, and you know what? We have the AI taking over the world. We have our leaders are all corrupt and horrible. We have war for whatever reason. What we were missing was that golden tinged dark sky from Highlander 2, but no longer.
EPA's air quality app is more popular than Facebook right now. New York City claims the title of having the worst air quality of any city on Earth Wednesday due to smoke from Canadian wildfires.
Again, Canada.
It's amazing to me that we're focusing so much on like New York and not Canada for the wildfire stories, but
This is a moment for Blizzard that they could not have planned, but what a perfect
The Diablo 4 ad, welcome to hell, New York.
and the sky is just orange.
Somebody inside of an ad agency sending high five emails to all the people.
It does look a lot like some of those cityscapes from the Doom remake.
Yeah, or like Blade Runner.
I thought
the
this
movie,
guy
the one.
reminded me of how they did the color grading in Mad Max.
Yeah,
It's just, whoa. It literally is Mad Max.
we were hazy here. I mean, not that bad, but like I think it was Wednesday. I had headaches all day.
I think it was bad that day that they posted that story. The next day it was worse. I don't know if it's going to get better anytime soon.
I think they're still fighting those fires. Hopefully, we get some rain soon.
And another thing that's probably not going to get better anytime soon is your Reddit experience, because a lot of people are abandoning it, and it's, their decision is very unpopular. A lot of people pointed out some obvious oversights to that thing that are going to cause certain people a lot of problems. So they've backtracked, but only just
a
like
teensy
a
bit.
half step.
Reddit will exempt accessibility-focused apps from its unpopular API pricing changes. Meanwhile, the very popular app Apollo is shutting down effective July 1. It's amazing because Reddit executives came out and basically dragged the Apollo guy under the bus. But it turns out that guy sort of figured that maybe something like that would go down. So he recorded literally everything and was like, all right, if you think that I'm trying to do something shady here by complaining about the API pricing and that you've offered me a deal or whatever, here's the recordings of literally everything. And so all of the people are rightly grabbing their torches and pitchforks. Reddit is they're going to go the way of Dig if they don't do an about face immediately.
I mean, it's been getting worse for a while.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing, I think. Like
Yeah.
it's like the forest fire. We need something new and fresh, and then during the early phases, we can enjoy it before it's destroyed.
There's a self-hosted Reddit clone that's incredible. I kind of want to set it up somewhere for us or for tech stuff somewhere.
That kind of, for me, I use Reddit for like niche little communities like native plant gardening or like canning and stuff. It's like there's not always forums for those kind of things. It's like I need somewhere to talk about that kind of stuff.
The federation part of this thing is not quite there, but that's exactly what it's designed for. It's like
Yeah.
if you wanted to Reddit, VFIO and Level 1 text community and blah, 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 and host a bunch of those kind of communities on just one instance, it's set up to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get sued into oblivion because of the 235.
Well, we already have that scare because of the forum.level1text.com. Join today.
Fun times.
Well, one social media that's not going away is TikTok. Seems to just be getting more and more popular despite all of the horrible things that we keep learning about it. And this one is certainly not surprising, but perhaps maybe a little further than any of us thought.
China tracked Hong Kong protesters with TikTok, quote unquote, God credential, former executive
I
says.
hope that's what that role was called somewhere in the back end. Just God.
They laid out a pretty credible argument here for how some of these folks just had TikTok installed, and that's how they used the app to track their movements and everything else. So, dark times.
That's according to Yin Tao Roger Yu, who was the head of engineering for ByteDance US. And he then left the company. It's been 5 years since he left the company. So TikTok's big argument against him was like, yeah, why didn't you say anything before now? And considering all the backlash that I'm imagining that Yin Tao Yu is a Chinese origin.
Had to get my family out of there.
Yeah.
It took a while.
Yeah.
Probably had a lot to lose by pointing out something that the Communist Party was doing wrong, right? And I thought this was interesting when I saw it. I was like, yeah, I would like to learn more about 4chan. This is more just like a little hit piece.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, there's one place on the internet where they actually have free speech. Let's destroy them. I'm not supporting 4chan here. It is everything that they say it is in this
Right.
article. But I think we need that safety valve. We need like that, to release the pressure.
Ars Technica, inside 4chan's top secret moderation machine. And it's just, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but it's not even a machine. This is more like a hodgepodge pile of sticks and rubber band and stale glue.
That's kind of what 4chan is too, though.
Yeah.
Like it's not changed since it launched, as far as I'm aware.
But basically, what their policy seems to be is stay on topic. Even if the topic is the
Terrible,
worst possible
yeah.
things, just stay on topic and we won't ban you. And don't complain about 4chan. And don't get in here and start saying that 4chan is bad. Those are the rules. Those are the only rules. Follow them. Oh, and don't post anything illegal.
Yeah.
They do get rid of that. Now, some people want a lot of this stuff to be illegal, but that doesn't fly with our way of life and constitution. And here is there's another thing that we've known for a while that this is terrible, but how do you get people to stop using it? You really can't. So is this fair?
More than 2,000 families suing social media companies over kids' mental health. Okay. Can we
luck.
change the thing that our society values so that kids won't be so hung up on what they see in social media?
I don't know how you do that.
These
It's a difficult thing to do.
These two were both teachers, and they sort of like saw what was happening in the social media world. So their policy was the phone stays in the hallway. If you want to use it, you use it in the hallway under supervision. At night, no one touches the phone. And this kid found ways around that like within a week.
Yeah.
Wow.
He installed a special app. He renamed the Instagram app to Calculator, changed the icon. I mean, this kid learned a lot about mobile computing,
Yeah.
to be fair. But then, all sorts of bad things happened. And then there was this young girl who she fell into like the eating disorder part of social media. And it was pretty horrific.
Yeah.
So it's terrible, but what are you going to do about it? There's no easy answer there. Also, TikTok could pay some of these lawsuits out and still make plenty of money, right?
Yeah.
That's probably what it'll end up being. Just pay to ruin the children.
Yeah, you stand to make more money from the children by advertising to them. So
And then that makes it forbidden fruit,
Yeah.
which probably draws more children to it. You know what? If we wanted to get kids off of TikTok, you know what we could do? We could start a program in nursing homes to get all the old people on TikTok.
yeah,
Because that's what happened with Facebook, right?
and then they just post those like terrible minion comics all over TikTok.
Yeah. Or like, oh yeah, I had a cyst burst today and take a picture of it. You know, it's like, oh God.
I'm just thinking about all the memes involving like Calvin Coolidge and Mr. Ed and I don't know.
Matlock.
Taft getting stuck in a bathtub. I don't know.
It's always like boomer memes are like the comics where it's like, I hate my wife, or that kind of stuff.
To the moon, Alice.
And then or like it's just a minion and it's like, I love my life, and it's a minion smiling with sparkles, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you start scrolling through that and you'd be like, oh God, let me go over to Instagram.
Yeah, I'll go somewhere else. I don't want
That's
this.
the perfect counter for social media. Another slow Monday. The government news about technology is not there.
No. Except for the UFOs.
Yeah, but I mean, there's only so much you can say about that because there's no facts. But we do have a massive, thick Friday as usual, and a medium-sized Wednesday. So you ramp up during the week.
Yeah.
We'll always be raising the excitement level.
Nice.
All right, we'll see you guys then. Bye.